Did you know that almost 46% of Americans believe they're underemployed? That means you're not earning as much as you can and also not fulfilling your work potential. Welcome back to my channel, the best place for ambitious millennial professionals who feel stuck in their careers to gain career clarity and to find their dream careers. In this video, I'm going to discuss the issue of underemployment, which is also a problem that affects many people. First, I'm going to define what underemployment is and why almost half of us are underemployed without us even knowing. Then, I'm going to go over the 3 definitions for underemployment. Be sure to stick around to learn the last definition, since it is the one that is the most difficult to track, but also is the most likely to affect all of us or someone that we know. Hi, I'm Dr. John Tam, and I'm passionate about helping ambitious millennial professionals build their dream careers. Make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell to receive regular updates on all things related to bringing a positive change to your career. So without further ado, here's what underemployment is and why you're likely underemployed without even knowing it. First, I want to make a distinction between underemployment and unemployment. The technical definition of unemployment is when you're actively looking for a job but are not partly or fully employed during a reference period. In Canada, the reference period is typically 4 weeks or a month. So basically, you haven't been working for the last month. So let's dive into what underemployment means. Underemployment is when the labor force is not used to its full capacity. And for underemployment, there are 3 definitions, and the scale and impact will change significantly based on these definitions. The first type is visible underemployment, and it's basically part-time workers who desire more hours to become full-time workers. So for example, if you're clocking 20 hours a week, but you desire 40 hours of work, then you are technically underemployed. And this type of underemployment is particularly obvious for retail or service industries. For example, certain restaurants would want extra help with servers during peak hours, or shops in a shopping mall may need extra help during the weekends. As you can guess, COVID has forced a lot of people to become underemployed during these times with social distancing and the closing of non-essential services. And oftentimes when companies are managing staff, they end up using human resource management software that allocate people to different places based on need. And once again, that's still not ideal because that means an individual would be traveling to different sites and so on. And so technically, while that individual is employed full-time, they are doing part-time at different places. But from the company's perspective, this is one of the best ways possible in order to optimize the workforce and keep everyone employed. However, with COVID, there's a lot of places being shut down and underemployment is increasing. And there is a silver lining to this, however, and it's that now is actually the best time to pivot careers. If you are underemployed and you've been working part-time and you're kind of in this scenario where you're working part-time and you're not being able to get full-time employment, this is actually the best time to make a career pivot. And check out this video, which I'll put in cards above, for you to understand what I mean and why COVID is the best time to pivot. Now, another example of this type of underemployment would be independent contractors or consultants who are not working to their full capacity and feel like they could be clocking more hours. So if you're a consultant and you're clocking 30 hours, but you feel like, your capacity really is 40 hours, then you are underemployed by approximately 10 hours per week. Typically, this definition of underemployment can be calculated using this formula up here, which is the number of underemployed individuals divided by the total labor force. And that essentially equals the underemployment rate. If we follow this definition, most studies reflect approximately 10 to 25% of Americans are typically underemployed, depending on the economic situation. And the second type of underemployment is called invisible underemployment. And this is when people report that they're unable to find a job in their chosen field, and as a result, they work a job that doesn't fit their skill set and often pays below their industry standards. It's also a self-report on whether they feel they're fulfilling their potential given their skills, training, and education. And I'm sure you've heard stories of people who get a degree in one thing and end up doing something that's completely unrelated to their undergrad. And that would also be considered a type of underemployment if you so choose to report it that way. And I want to emphasize that invisible underemployment hits many people, especially immigrants or ethnic minorities. And if we follow this definition and talk to the actual workforce, a 2014 pay scale study shows that 46% of Americans actually believe they're underemployed. Now, to be very clear, the Bureau of Labor Statistics state clearly that it does not measure this type of invisible underemployment as it's too difficult. And when we look at underemployment, it's often related to education. And when we look at the data from the 2014 Pay Scale report, 57% of people who receive some college education report feeling underemployed. 50% of people who hold associate degrees feel underemployed. 43% of bachelor degree holders feel underemployed, and 39 to 41% of MBA or master's holders feel underemployed. And when we look at the PhDs, 34% of them feel underemployed. So essentially, at a high level, when we look at education, getting a higher education, getting more education, doesn't mean you avoid feeling underemployed. And in fact, research in 2017 by Gallup Strata actually reports 51% of college degree holders would change one of their decisions in terms of either their institution, their major, or their field of study. And one major reason was because it wasn't clear what career outcomes they were going to get with that degree. And that's why in my previous videos, I talk a lot about the glass ceiling and bamboo ceilings, which can really cap people's potential. And you can find these videos in the playlist above. But essentially, many immigrants come to the West based on their success and education in their country of origin. But without the right environment and the right skills to climb the corporate ladder, they actually end up becoming underemployed because they have the education to really work at this level, but they end up doing work which they feel like, is at this level, right? And when we look at urban centers, we're looking at like immigrant populations anywhere ranging from 30% to 40% nowadays. And so the immigrant population definitely would raise this number. And when we're talking about people who are climbing the corporate ladder, soft skills is usually what makes the biggest difference. And that's actually one of the biggest problems that a lot of immigrants have. And you can definitely check out my soft skills versus hard skills video, which I'll put in the cards above. At the end of the day, invisible underemployment is self-reported, and the bottom line is, what are your goals for your career and your trajectory in terms of your education, your training, and experience need to be all aligned to that goal. And it's actually really easy to lose any motivation you have for your career when you are underemployed, because you're actually not doing stuff that is close to your heart, that you feel you've got training for, and so on. And I dive into the details of the science behind motivation here, which I'll put in the cards above, which I talk about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. I'll be expanding on how we can solve this problem of underemployment in future videos, so make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell to learn on how to avoid being underemployed and keep yourself out of that situation. Now, which two definitions of underemployment have you experienced? Let me know in the comments below. Now, the third type of underemployment is the most difficult because it is the least talked about in terms of underemployment. But I can pretty much guarantee that it impacts someone you know, if not you. This type identifies workers who are marginally attached to the labor force, and it's essentially characterized by them leaving the workforce altogether and not searching for a job. The reason for this is because they feel disillusioned to work the workforce, right? They feel like there's no hope to find meaningful work. This type of underemployment is almost impossible to track since they fall into what we call a statistical no man's land, because they essentially aren't tracked as being underemployed, and at the same time they are not unemployed. And remember, like I said at the very beginning, unemployment technically means you are looking for a job and you've been looking for more than 1 month. And so this group of underemployment essentially cannot be tracked under underemployment, and they also can't be tracked under unemployment. And this is a big problem that a lot of governments are trying to tackle. In particular, there's this group called NEET, right? N-E-E-T, which is defined as not in education, employment, or training. And last year, the federal government in Canada actually allocated $440 million to have NGOs and for-profit businesses tackle this problem. And I was actually involved in several of the organization's grant writing process. So based on these three definitions, the bottom line is this: many millennials and Gen Zs will struggle with underemployment based on whatever definition there is at one point or another. And I'll dive into the stats and reasons for why this is the case in my next video. But if you belong to any of these definitions of underemployment, I highly recommend you to subscribe and click the notification bell to receive an update when my next video, which is explaining why underemployment exists, when it comes out. After all, you can't solve a problem that you don't understand. I also have resources to help you get out of underemployment, and it all starts with clarity in finding what you want to do to get that direction, set a target, and really have a goal so that you can start building momentum in your life. And I would highly recommend you to take a free, quick, and accurate career personality test in the description below. You can also check out my guide on how to find your dream career. Check out my free training on how to find your dream career as well. If you want to be in a community of people interested in making their careers work for them rather than the other way around, be sure to join my Facebook group, Career Change Advice, which I'll also put in the links below. Everything's in the details below, all right? Make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell for when future videos come out that will help you in your career. And also, leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to give this video a like and share it with your network if you found this to be valuable. Take care.